7 Golden Age stars who still haunt the Hollywood studios. Hollywood's golden era gave us unforgettable stars whose performances continue to captivate audiences decades after their final curtain calls. But for some of cinema's most iconic figures, it seems the final curtain never truly fell. From the hallowed soundstages of Paramount to the storied corridors of MGM, security guards, crew members, and visitors have reported chilling encounters with apparitions of Hollywood royalty who apparently never got the memo that their scenes had wrapped. Today, we're exploring the spine, tingling stories of 7 legendary stars whose spirits reportedly still wander the studios where they once brought movie magic to life. These aren't just urban legends whispered by tour guides. These are documented encounters reported by seasoned industry professionals who found themselves face-to-face with Hollywood history in its most supernatural form. From a Latin lover who refuses to fade to black to a blonde bombshell whose reflection appears in mirrors where she once prepared for mortal performances. These stories will make you wonder if some stars truly are eternal. And wait until you hear about the ghostly presence in room 928 of the Roosevelt Hotel. What witnesses have experienced there will send shivers down your spine. Authors go everywhere nowadays. Why in London I even met actors and actresses in society. 7. Clifton Webb, the ghostly perfectionist. Clifton Webb was never your typical Hollywood star. With his impeccable diction, patrician bearing, and razor-sharp wit, he crafted unforgettable performances in classics like Laura, The Razor's Edge, and Sitting Pretty. His portrayal of the acid Tange columnist Waldo Littkeer in Laura earned him an Academy Award nomination and cemented his reputation as cinema's premier sophisticated snob in life. Webb was known for his exacting standards and deviant behavior on set. A perfectionist to his core, he insisted on precision in everything from lighting to costume details. As actress and Baxter once remarked, Clifton didn't suffer fools, or anyone else for that matter, but his perfectionism produced perfection on screen. It seems that Webb's dedication to cinematic excellence has extended well beyond the grave. Since his death in 1966, the former 20th Century Fox Studios, now part of the Walt Disney Studios, have been plagued by unexplainable occurrences that many attribute to Webb's hideous ghost. His former dressing room on the Fox lot was notorious, reveals longtime studio electrician Raymond Martinez. We'd set the temperature to 72 degrees because the new occupant requested it, and within an hour we'd be back at a chilly 65, exactly what Webb always demanded during his time there. We'd check the system, find nothing wrong, reset it, and the same thing would happen again. The temperature anomalies might be dismissed as mechanical glitches, but harder to explain are the numerous reports off-lights being affected whenever Webb's films were being discussed or screened in certain areas of the studio. I was giving a tour to film students in 2018, and we stopped in Sound Stage 14 where Laura had partially been filmed, recounts former studio artist Margaret Wilson. When I mentioned that this was where Clifton Webb had delivered his famous "I'm not kind, I'm vicious" line, the overhead light directly above me crashed to the floor, missing me by inches. There was nothing wrong with the fixture. It had just been inspected the week before. Most unsettling are the encounters reported by custodial staff working night shifts. Multiple janitors have reported seeing a tall, slender man in 1940s attire standing in the doorway of Webb's former dressing room, watching them work with a critical expression before vanishing when directly addressed. He doesn't say anything. He just watches you with this look that makes you feel like you've missed aspect, describes night custodian James Dominguez. The first time I saw him, it thought he was an actor dressed for a period piece. I said, "Sorry, sir, I'll come back later." And he just dissolved. That's the only word for it. He didn't walk away. He dissolved into the air. What makes Webb's haunting particularly interesting to paranormal researchers is how perfectly it aligns with his living personality. Unlike some Hollywood hauntings that seem random or tragic, Webb's ghost appears to be continuing behavior that defined his life, maintaining exacting standards and observing others with critical intensity. Diva behavior doesn't die. It lingers, notes paranormal investigator Rebecca Summers, who has documented the Webb phenomena. Some spirits seem confused or lost after death. Not Webb. He seems to be doing exactly what he always did, ensuring everything meets his impeccable standards. In a particularly web-like manifestation, visitors to the Fox commissary occasionally report hearing a disembodied voice making cutting remarks about modern fashion choices or poor posture. These auditory events are often accompanied by the distinct smell of Webb's signature cologne, Penalagonis Blenheim Bouquet. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there's something oddly comforting about the thought of Clifton Webb still maintaining his exacting standards in the afterlife, a perfectionist for eternity, ensuring that the studio where he created movie magic continues to meet his impeccable expectations. Around and around a rugged rocks the ragged rascal ran. Isaacs, George Reeves, the Man of Steel's final flight. For millions of Americans in the 1950s, George Reeves wasn't just an actor playing Superman. He was Superman. His portrayal of the Man of Steel in Adventures of Superman made him one of television's first superstars and forever linked him to the character. But Reeves' story ended in tragedy rather than triumph when he died of a gunshot wound in 1959 in what was officially ruled a suicide, though controversy and conspiracy theories have surrounded his death for decades. Perhaps it's this unresolved ending that explains why Reeves' spirit seems unable to rest. At Warner Brothers Studios, where much of Adventures of Superman was filmed, report of Reeves' ghostly presence had persisted for over 60 years. The most active area is definitely Soundstage 5, explains retired security guard Vincent Delaney, who worked at Warner Brothers from 1978 to 2005. That's where they filmed many of the Daily Planet office scenes. Night guards routinely reported hearing typewriter keys clacking when a building was empty. When they'd investigate, the sound would stop, but they'd feel a cold draft pass by them, like someone rushing past in a hurry. Even more unsettling are the reports from Reeves' former dressing room, which has been repurposed many times over the decades, but continues to generate inexplicable phenomena. Maintenance workers refuse to enter the room alone after numerous reports of a male voice firmly stating, "I'm still here." The voice has been recorded on at least 3 separate occasions during paranormal investigations, though the studio doesn't officially acknowledge these events. The Cape never left the studio, says paranormal researcher Dr. Eleanor Jenkins, who has studied the Reeves haunting extensively. By that I mean the essence of Superman, and by extension George Reeves, seems permanently imprinted on the Warner lot. Several witnesses have reported seeing Atom Man in a suit, not the Superman costume, standing at the window of the dressing room, looking out as if waiting for someone. Perhaps the most chilling manifestation occurs in the form of sound rather than sight. Several nighttime security guards have reported hearing a single gunshot echoing from empty buildings on the anniversary of Reeves' death. When investigated, no evidence of any disturbance is ever found. I was doing my rounds on June 16, 2010, the anniversary of his death, though I didn't make the connection at the time, recounts former guard Thomas Wilson. Around AM, I heard what was unmistakably a gunshot from inside Soundstage 5. It was loud enough that I called for backup before entering. We searched every inch of that building. Nothing. No evidence anyone had been there. Later, I looked up when Reeves died. Not just the date, June 16, 1959, but the time, approximately 1 a.m. That was my last night shift at Warner Brothers. I requested day shifts only after that. What makes the Reeves haunting particularly poignant is how it mirrors the ambiguity of his death. Just as questions linger about whether his end was suicide or murder, his spirit seems caught between worlds, neither fully present nor completely gone. Costume department employees have reported finding the storage area for Superman memorabilia in disarray, despite being securely locked with the original cape, kept as a treasured archive item, removed from its preservation box, and laid out as if ready for wear. On each occasion, the security system showed no evidence of entry. There's a sadness to this haunting, observes Jenkins. It feels like someone trying to reclaim their identity. Remember, Reeves struggled with being TYP cast as Superman. It overshadowed everything else in his career, perhaps in death. He's still grappling with the role that defined him and ultimately may have contributed to his demise. Whether you view these phenomena as genuine paranormal activity or merely the power of suggestion affecting people in a place with strong historical associations, the persistence of these experiences across decades and reported by unrelated witnesses suggests that something of George Reeves, the man who could leap tall buildings in a single bound, still walks the Warner Brothers lot, unable or unwilling to make his final exit. First of all, I'm stage struck, and I think they all know that. Secondly, it's rare to get a film that has audience. 5. Joan Crawford, the ultimate stage mother. Joan Crawford built her legendary career on an iron will and ferocious determination. From her breakthrough in Our Dancing Daughters to her late career resurgence in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Crawford approached every role with an intensity that became her trademark. That same formidable presence reportedly continues to manifest at MGM's historic backlots, now Sony Picture Studios, where Crawford filmed many of her greatest successes. Joan Crawford was known for controlling every aspect of her image and performance, explains film historian Diana Winters. She would arrive hours early to position lights, adjust set decoration, and essentially direct her own scenes regardless of who was actually in the director's chair. It makes a certain sense that a personality that's strong might leave an imprint that survives physical death. The most consistent reports come from Stage 12, where Crawford filmed emotional scenes for Mildred Pierce, the 1945 film that won her an Academy Award. Crew members working late have described sudden dramatic temperature drops as much as 20 degrees in seconds that affect only specific areas of the sound stage. I was rigging lights for a shoot scheduled the next day, recalls lighting technician Mark Jensen. It was August in Los Angeles, around 85 degrees outside, and the air conditioning wasn't even running yet. Suddenly, the area around the east wall turned freezing cold. I could see my breath. I called out thinking someone had opened the door, but I was alone. Then I remembered that was where they had built the restaurant set for Mildred Pierce. Crawford's big confrontation scene was filmed right where I was standing. Even more disturbing are the experiences reported in the studio's vintage dressing rooms. Makeup artists preparing actors in Crawford's former dressing room have repeatedly reported finding their carefully arranged makeup tables completely reorganized overnight with items positioned in the precise way Crawford preferred her own cosmetics arranged. The crew refuses to work alone when Joan's scene is playing back, says post-production supervisor Elaine Rodriguez. In 2019, we were reviewing footage in the editing bay that included clips from Grand Hotel for a documentary. The original Crawford footage was playing when all 6 screens went black simultaneously. When they came back on seconds later, each screen showed the same still frame, a close-up of Crawford's eyes from the film. Our editor hadn't selected that frame. The system had somehow located it independently across multiple digital files. The tech team never found an explanation. Perhaps the most unsettling manifestation centers around a soundstage nursery set where Crawford filmed a particularly emotional scene for the women in 1939. Night security guards have reported hearing a woman's voice repeatedly calling Christina, the name of Crawford's adopted daughter made famous in the tell-all memoir In Film Mommy Dearest. When investigated, the voice stops, but witnesses describe feeling an overwhelming sense of anger and frustration in the empty room. There's a theory in paranormal research that extreme emotions can imprint themselves on physical locations, explains Dr. Raymond Pfizer, who has documented studio hauntings for 3 decades. Crawford's relationship with her daughter was famously troubled, and she filmed intense scenes involving mother-child dynamics on these very sound stages. Those powerful emotions, combined with Crawford's legendary force of will, could explain why her energy remained so potent decades after her death. Most recently, during the 2021 renovation of the original MGM backlit streets, now owned by Sony, construction workers reported tools being moved overnight, and in one particularly bizarre incident, finding a 1930s-style wire coat hanger balanced atop a stack of building materials, an eerie echo of the most infamous scene from Mommy Dearest. Security cameras showed no one entering the secured area. Whether you view these occurrences as genuine haunting or merely coincidences magnified by Crawford's larger-than-life legacy, they speak to how thoroughly this formidable star stamped her presence on Hollywood. As one studio tour guide quips to visitors, Joan Crawford always demanded the spotlight in life. Why would death be any different? The head of the studio sees it. He jumps up and shouts, that face, give me that girl." 4. Lucille Ball, Laughter from Beyond. Lucille Ball revolutionized television with I Love Lucy, creating a template for the sitcom that influences a medium to this day. Her perfectionism, business acumen, and extraordinary comic talent made her not just a star, but pioneering executive when she and husband Daisy Arnaz founded Delu Productions, which later evolved into Paramount Television. It was at Delu Studios, now part of the Paramount lot, where Ball created her television empire, and where her presence reportedly remains decades after her death in 1989. Unlike some Hollywood hauntings that feel melancholy or threatening, encounters with Ball's spirit are often described as playful and energetic, much like her on-screen persona. Lucy's still here, just off-camera, says veteran sound engineer Thomas Martinez, who has worked at the studio for over 4 decades. We'll be in the middle of a sound mix in Studios 41 or 43, the original I Love Lucy sound stages, and suddenly hear female laughter, not from speakers or any equipment, but like someone is standing right behind you enjoying a private joke. It's happened to me at least 7 times since the 1990s. This fandom laughter is the most commonly reported manifestation, often described as starting as a chuckle and building to Ball's distinctive full-throated laugh. What makes these experiences particularly striking is their tendency to occur during moments of tension or stress on set, almost as if Ball's spirit is trying to lighten the mood during difficult production moments. "We were having a nightmare day in 2018, recalls television director Sarah Johnson. Equipment failures, actor conflicts, running behind schedule, a producer's worst nightmare. I was alone in the control booth taking a moment to collect myself when I distinctly heard a woman's voice say, 'The show must go on, kid.' There was nobody there." Later, when I described it to the studio veteran, he said, "That's just Lucy. She shows up when things get rough." More tangible manifestations include unexplained technical phenomena that seem to carry Ball's comedic fingerprints, lights that suddenly illuminate empty sets, cameras that pan with no operator, and in one widely witnessed incident in 2015, an entire episode of I Love Lucy playing on a monitor that wasn't connected to any source. One camera operator swore he saw her watching from the balcony during the sitcom taping in 2010, says studio tour guide Rebecca Wilson. He described a red-headed woman in 1950s clothing standing in the visitor's gallery, nodding appreciatively at a particularly well-executed comedy bit. When he pointed her out to a production assistant, there was nobody there, but several audience members had also noticed her. Particularly active areas include Ball's former office, where staff report computers turning on by themselves and playing clips from I Love Lucy episodes, and Stage 21, where unexplained cold spots often form in the exact area where the Ricardo's fictional New York apartment stood. What distinguishes Ball's haunting from others is its seemingly supportive nature. Unlike spirits that appear to be trapped or reliving trauma, Ball's presence feels intentional, as if she's still taking an active interest in productions occurring in the spaces she once dominated. Lucille Ball broke barriers for women in television, both on screen and in the executive suite, notes television historian Dr. Ella Lehner Hughes. She fought for quality and innovation throughout her career. If her spirit does indeed linger at the studio she built, it would be entirely in character for her to continue producing from beyond, ensuring the work meets her standards. In a touching tribute to these persistent experiences, current Paramount Television productions often place a small vase of roses, Ball's favorite flower, in the corner of Studio 41 before beginning a new show. Staff claim this gesture seems to correlate with smoother production days and fewer technical glitches. As longtime Paramount stagehand Miguel Sanchez puts it, "Most of us don't talk about it officially, but we all know Lucy's still making sure the show goes on, still finding ways to make us laugh, still part of the studio she built. Some stars fade after death. Lucy, she's still in prime time. I mean, no, like that point 3. Montgomery Clift, the tortured method actor, few Hollywood stars, burned as intensely or as briefly as Montgomery Clift. With his sense of performances in classics like From Here to Eternity, A Place in the Sun, and The Misfits, Clift brought a new psychological depth to American cinema. His method acting approach and haunted good looks made Haim an icon of his generation before personal demons, and a disfiguring car accident sent his life and career into decline. Today, Clift's restless spirit is said to haunt multiple Hollywood locations, but none more famously than room 928 of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, where he stayed for 3 months in 1953 while filming From Here to Eternity. That room has more paranormal activity reports than any other space in the hotel, reveals former Roosevelt manager James Wilson. Guests report hearing a man reciting lines or pacing at 3 a.m. The phone rings with no money in the line. Personal items get rearranged. We've had multiple guests check out in the middle of the night, even though some don't realize the room's history when they book it. What makes room 928 particularly active, according to paranormal researchers, is how intensely Cliff lived while staying there. Known for his obsessive preparation, Cliff would practice his trumpet playing for hours for his role as Private Pwit and run lines throughout the night, frustrating other guests with noise complaints. His rehearsal tapes play without a machine, claims night manager Elizabeth Chun. At least 3 times during my tenure, security has been called to room 928 because guests in neighboring rooms reported hearing a man playing trumpet, followed by what sounds like old-fashioned audio recordings of dialogue from Here to Eternity. When we investigate, the room is empty or the occupants are asleep with no audio devices playing. Even more unsettling are the visual manifestations. Multiple guests have reported seeing a slender man in 1950s clothing standing at the window, staring out at Hollywood with an expression of intense sadness. Others have awakened to the sight of a man sitting in the corner chair watching them before fading away when directly addressed. I didn't know anything about Montgomery Cliff or the room's history when I stayed there in 2019, says tourist Michael Brennan. Around 2 a.m., I got up for water and saw a man in the corner chair. I thought it was an intruder and turned on the light, but there was nobody there. The next morning, the front desk casually asked if I'd met Monty yet. When they explained, my blood ran cold. What had seen matched photos of Cliff exactly. The haunting isn't confined to the Roosevelt. At the old MGM soundstages, now Sony Picture Studios, where Cliff filmed portions of From Here to Eternity, crew members report cold spots and unexplained emotional effects in certain areas. There's one corner of Soundstage 15 where people inexplicably start feeling overwhelming sadness, says set decorator Thomas Reynolds. Grown men will be never heard of Montgomery Cliff suddenly find themselves on the verge of tears. When we researched it, we discovered it's the exact spot where they filmed the scene of Cliff's character learning of his friend's death. It's like his emotional performance left an imprint that's still active 70 years later. Perhaps most dramatic are the occurrences at the Paramount lot, where sections of Place in the Sun were filmed. Security guards report seeing a man matching Cliff's description, wandering the back lots late at night, appearing disoriented and distressed. When approached, the figure vanishes, often leaving behind the distinctive smell of the alcohol and painkillers that plagued the actor in his later years. What connects these various manifestations is their emotional intensity. Unlike some Hollywood hauntings that seem rote or repetitive, Cliff's appearances carry the same psychological weight that characterize his pioneering performances. Montgomery Cliff brought a new vulnerability and psychological realism to Hollywood acting, explains film historian Dr. Rebecca Martinez. He exposed his inner torment on screen in a way that was revolutionary for male performers of his era. If a spirit does indeed linger in these spaces, it makes a certain poetic sense that it would continue to project that same emotional intensity beyond death. For the staff who regularly encounter these phenomena, there's a deep sadness to Cliff's haunting, the sense of a brilliant artist whose demons followed him even beyond the grave. Guests in room 928 often report hearing crying in the bathroom at dawn, says Roosevelt housekeeping supervisor Gloria Mendez. Not scary crying, heartbreaking cry like someone in real pain. Monty didn't have a happy life. Maybe he doesn't have a happy afterlife either. Honest. She's just dumb. Always falling in love with some man, just because to Marilyn Monroe, the eternal bombshell. Marilyn Monroe's tragic death at age 36 in 1962 transformed her from movie star to eternal icon. Her complex legacy, the gap between her carefully crafted sex symbol image and the intelligent, troubled woman behind it, continues to fascinate new generations. Perhaps it's this unresolved duality that explains why Monroe's spirit reportedly remains one of Hollywood's most active and frequently encountered presences. The epicenter of Monroe's haunting is undoubtedly the 20th Century Fox Studios, now part of the Walt Disney Studios, where she filmed some of her most famous movies, including Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and The 7-Year Itch. It's in her former dressing room on the lot where the most consistent and unsettling manifestations occur. Workers claim a reflection appears in mirrors in her old dressing room, says longtime Fox employee Richard Martinez. It's always the same phenomenon. Someone is alone in the room. They turn away from the mirror, and when they look back, they momentarily see Marilyn's reflection instead of their own. It lasts just a second or two, but it's happened to dozens of people over the decades. These mirror appearances are typically described not as frightening, but as melancholy. Monroe appearing as she did in her final Fox film, Something's Gotta Give, which remained unfinished at her death. The apparition never speaks, but gazes sadly at her own reflection before fading. Even more common are sensory experiences that seem to carry Monroe's signature. The distinctive Chanel No. 5 perfume she famously wore as her only bedtime attire frequently manifests in areas where she spent significant time. Cold spots and perfume smells where she said to prep for scenes or almost daily occurrences, notes Elaine Wilson, who worked in costume maintenance at Fox for over 30 years. You'll be hanging costumes, and suddenly it's 20 degrees colder in one specific spot with this overwhelming scent of Chanel No. 5. The first time it happened to me in 1985, I thought someone had broken a perfume bottle, but then older employees explained that's just Marilyn saying hello. The haunting extends beyond Fox to other significant locations in Monroe's life. At the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, where a mirror from Monroe's former suite is now displayed in the lower level, guests frequently report seeing her blonde reflection when they pass by. The hotel has received so many reports that they no longer attempt to debunk them, instead incorporating a Monroe mirror into their official tour. Perhaps most unsettling are the electrical phenomena that seem to accompany Monroe's presence. Light fixtures flicker, electronic equipment malfunctions, and in particularly active moments, bulbs have been known to explode in areas associated with the actress.